What's going on, guys? It's your boy Big Hero Chris, back at you with another one. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, give me a thumbs up, ring the notification bell, hit me up on Twitter, TikTok, the community post. You already know the vibes, man. And I'm back at you with your AEW Dynamite review. Now, a lot of YouTube channels, especially YouTube channels in the IWC, the wrestling community, they like to do these things called rants where, they voice their frustration by either, just talking about what bothers them. Some people yell a lot, like a lot for like 3 hours on their podcast, and that's not my business. That's not how I do things, I fancy myself as being pretty fair when it comes to both AEW and WWE, and even Impact when I cover them from time to time. But as far as covering wrestling in general, I consider myself to be pretty fair. There's no real bias. I'm not an E-drone. I'm not an AEW whatever. I just like wrestling, especially good wrestling, right? So with AEW, it's really complex because for every good thing that AEW does, whether it's the pay-per-views, the wrestling, because that's what AEW is where the best wrestling, that's what they say, that's what they keep saying, that's what they keep hammering, that's what they keep shoving down your throats, that AEW is where the best wrestler. For every good thing that AEW does, it seems like they take a step back and do something that just makes you just really question why you watch. You know what I mean? Like, question why you put so much time and energy and effort into watching and dealing with AEW. And this week's episode of Dynamite, I don't want to say it was bad because it wasn't, but it wasn't good, right? There were good things that happened on the show, but there was a lot of things that just made you just sit back and really scratch your head. And the big thing being, it's probably going to be the thumbnail of this video, is Chris Jericho winning the Ring of Honor Championship for the second time in his career, right? Second time with him being in AEW. He beat Mark Briscoe in a ladder match. And when this match was announced last week, I pretty much knew what it was. This wasn't surprising to me. And I'm like, why? Like, why do this? Why do you have Chris Jericho do this when it comes to his feud? Why do you have him lose the first match, get a rematch out of nowhere that he doesn't deserve, just to win that rematch? And in this case, it's for a championship. Now, granted, nobody really watches Ring of Honor except for the select few people. God bless you if you do watch Ring of Honor. I know this is a dark day for you. I don't really watch Ring of Honor like that, so I don't really have any stake in the game. But for the fact that Chris Jericho is on AEW television and he's holding the Ring of Honor Championship, this bothers me because who asked for this? Who in big 2024 said, what we need? What AEW really needs, man? Chris Jericho holding a championship of any kind. And that's what we got, man. And I'm not even gonna lie to you, I wasn't paying attention to this match at all. I was on my phone, I was watching basketball, I was texting people. I wasn't paying attention. The only thing I saw was Rocky Romero came out, and I thought for some reason he was gonna turn heel, but he didn't. And then Big Bill came out, he chokeslammed Mark Briscoe through a table, and he helped Chris Jericho win the Ring of Honor Championship. And as he and Chris Jericho are celebrating, Ishii comes out, and I'm like, I respect Ishii as a legend in wrestling. Why does he always have to be on the show? Like, why? Is it like in a case or something? Like Tony Khan breaks him out and break this case in case of emergency, and it's Ishii. I don't get it. So I'm assuming we're just gonna move past Mark Briscoe getting a rematch to Ishii versus Chris Jericho. I'm assuming at Full Gear. Why, man? Why? I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's really frustrating because you do have a lot of good things going on. Like, you have the continuing feud between Hangman and Jay White. Hangman comes out, he cuts a promo. He talks about how he attempted to murder Juice Robinson, how he took out one of the ass boys. And then you have the other ass boy come out him and Adam Page squabble for a little bit. Jay White comes out, they squabble. So they're keeping their feud going, and I like that. I like the dynamic between Jay White and Adam Page because I like both of these wrestlers. And you know, this feud is pretty cool. So, you know, you have that good thing going. Something else really good you have going on is the Hurt Syndicate, the Hurt Business, MVP and Shelton Benjamin. Especially the fact that we have Shelton Benjamin wrestling 2 weeks back to back, man. This week he wrestled Sammy Guevara, and they had a really good match. I'm not the biggest Sammy Guevara fan, but I do respect his talent. I respect what he can do in the ring. And on top of all that, Shelton Benjamin and Sammy Guevara recreated the Shawn Michaels Shelton Benjamin super kick spot. If you know, you know. It's when Sammy went to go to do the springboard, and this was I had a feeling that they were gonna do this because they kept teasing Sammy doing his springboard throughout the match, and I was like, they're gonna do that super kick spot, and they did it. Shelton Benjamin ended up getting the win, and it was a really fun match. I like watching Shelton Benjamin wrestle because he hasn't lost a step. He looks exactly the same. This man doesn't age. You even had a tease of Ricochet being in the Hurt Syndicate, and I remember seeing something a while ago that Ricochet was originally supposed to be in the Hurt Business, but they opted to go with Cedric Alexander. So to see this moment come full circle and Ricochet teasing that he might actually be rocking with the Hurt Syndicate, as well as challenging Takeshita for a championship match, I'm here for it. And those things like that, man, those are the things I like about AEW. These are the good things you have. And they made an attempt to, you know, continue the storyline between Mariah May and Anna Jay. Anna Jay won the eliminator match at Battle of the Belts, which is like, alright, whatever. But you know, Anna Jay did get the win, and she's gonna be challenging Mariah May in like 2 weeks or so on Collision for the AEW Women's Championship. I don't expect Anna Jay to win, but they are doing a good job of, you know, keeping the story going. Even though it had a little backstage altercation, which looked really weird, like they were just like moving each other, and it didn't look like a real fight. Like they were just like, I don't know what the hell they were trying to do. You even have Kyle Fletcher coming out, and a lot of people were kind of down on the promo. The crowd itself in Utah, they were really down on the promo. They were telling him to wrap it up. They were chanting "shut the fuck up" at Kyle Fletcher. I thought the promo was really good, man. It went on a little bit too long, but it really did get a good job of getting the point across of Kyle Fletcher not really liking the fact that a lot of people were comparing him to the Will Ospreay, saying he's gonna be the next Will Ospreay. His thing is he wants to be better than Will Ospreay. He's not like Will Ospreay at all. This even culminated with him yelling and cutting off his hair, so Kyle Fletcher is officially bald now, which is like, alright, cool, whatever, you know, it is what it is. I wasn't really a fan of his haircut, so hey, go bald, bro. But yeah, I actually like the content of what Kyle Fletcher said. And like I said last week, I actually care about the Don Callis family. You even had Brian Cage and Lance Archer, who didn't look like a bootleg Drew McIntyre this week. He looked like Lance Archer. Him and Brian Cage squashed 2 dudes, so you know, good for them. Even though you had the Chris Jericho match, which I didn't care for, the fact that you had Chris Jericho win, I didn't care for. The show was going good so far. And then Adam Cole comes out. And normally, I typically pop when Adam Cole comes out. I like Adam Cole. I'm a huge fan of his. But I'm not really digging what they got going on with this MJF story. Last week in my reviews, I said I was willing to, you know, do a clean slate. I didn't care for the Bro Chacho storyline, but, you know, whatever. And I tried to, like, forget what happened this past year between Adam Cole and MJF. But they keep bringing it back up because as Adam Cole is talking, you have Roddy and the Undisputed Kingdom come out. And they're talking about how, you know, when Adam Cole approached them to, you know, execute the plan to be the devil and take out MJF. And it keeps reminding me of that BS storyline that they had going on last year. And when they remind me of that, they try to, you know, cover their tracks and make up for lost time and try to make sense of that storyline. And they're not really doing a good job. I just really want to forget that storyline, but they don't want me to. They keep throwing it at me. Apparently what's going to happen is Roddy said he wants a piece of MJF. Adam Cole said he wants MJF. MJF gets on the screen. He's not in the arena once again. He does a pre-tape segment. And he pretty much said that it's going to be between Adam Cole and Roderick Strong. The first person to win 3 matches is going to get that shot at MJF. So convoluted. It's another one of those storylines where MJF has to stack the odds against his opponent to, you know, throw obstacles in his way to get his hands on MJF. It's the same typical storyline that MJF does over and over and over again. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense, but whatever. And to make matters more confusing, you had the House of Black come out. And I'm excited because you don't really see the House of Black wrestle on Dynamite. You don't really see them pull up on Wednesday. So the fact that you had the House of Black on this episode of Dynamite, I was cool with it. And they wrestled some jobbers. They beat them in a squash match. And I'm thinking, alright, so maybe the House of Black can, you know, go up against the Moxley Ward Order and, you know, go after the Trio Championships. Wrong. And what ends up happening is you have Buddy Matthews calling out Adam Cole for a match next week. And on one hand, the match should be fire. I don't think they've ever wrestled in NXT or anything like that. So I'm cool with that. And when I start to think about it, I'm like, why does Buddy want to wrestle Adam Cole? And Adam Cole was asked about this. And he's asked, well, how do you feel about this? And this man says, well, why don't I ask Buddy how I feel? And I'm like, you have to ask another man how you feel. Whatever. Apparently, the match has been set. Next week is going to be Buddy Matthews versus Adam Cole. So that's going to be one of those matches to see if Adam Cole can get to the next level and reach 3 wins before Roderick Strong does to get his hands on MJF. So, okay. So we have a backstage segment. Like, it was a pre-tape segment for Chris Statlander and Camille. And they're going to wrestle next week on the Halloween episode. Speaking of Camille, she wrestled Queen Aminata. And this was an okay match. It was decent, you know. It did a good job of showcasing Queen Aminata, you know, showing her as a possible threat to Mercedes Moné, being a possible threat to the women in general. She lost once again, but, you know, she had a pretty good outing. And Camille, she was there too. She did stuff. So after the match, you have a face-off between Camille and Chris Statlander, you know, hyping up their match for next week. And speaking of the women, you have a storyline going on between Jamie Hayter and Penelope Ford, aka Penelope. Cool. They tried to, you know, tie it up and wrap it up in a nice little bow and tell their little story. But yeah, I forgot when they said they were gonna wrestle. I think it's gonna be like in 2 weeks or whatever. So be on the lookout for that. And another story you had. So you had Christian Cage pull up. As he's walking into the arena, you have what's his name, Kip Sabian pull up, and he's eyeballing Christian, and Christian chases him to the ring. And as they're having their little interaction, you have Hook pull up, and Hook's like he knows who attacked his father. Spoiler alert, it's Christian. But for some reason, you have Kip Sabian turn heel and join up with the patriarchy. I assume he's looking for a father, and he found that in Christian. And Christian attacks Hook, and yeah. And normally, I like what Christian does. I'm a huge fan of his. I'm a Christian Coalition member. I'm a fan of Christian. I'm a peep. I respect Christian and his turtlenecks. But this whole storyline is kind of weird. I'm gonna let it play out because they're just getting into it, but it's weird. I don't get it because you've had Kip Sabian following around Christian for the longest time. You had Kip Sabian steal Christian's pin to keep him from cashing in his contract, and this whole storyline is just kind of all over the place. So we'll see where this goes. But this leads me to the last 2 things I want to talk about, and that is first and foremost, oh my God, is that Private Party? They're with Daniel Garcia, and they're wrestling the Elite, the Elite. And this was the main event. This was a trios match, and this was a fun match. This was a typical Elite trios match with Jack Perry. And the first thing I noticed was you have the Elite making their entrance. They're coming up on the little elevator thing, and I'm like, yeah, they could have let Jack Perry be on the elevator too. There was room enough for those 3. You know, they're not really big guys, so you know all 3 of them could have fit. But I digress, you know, the match itself was fun. Private Party ended up getting the win over the Young Bucks. And then Isaiah Cassidy gets on the mic. He challenges the Young Bucks to a tag team title match. And he says that if Private Party lose, they break up forever, ever. Mark Quinn looks kind of surprised by this. He's like, yo, what are you doing? Isaiah's like, we got this. and the match is made official. And I'm thinking it's gonna happen at Full Gear, but it's actually happening next week. So that makes me a little nervous for Private Party because they did get the win this week. So I'm not really too sure if they're gonna win next week. That means Private Party breaks up, and I don't want that. But the real story of this show is what's going on with the Blackpool Combat Club. So the show starts off as it has been for the past few weeks with the BCC talking, and Jon Moxley's talking. And as this is going on, I don't know if this was audio issues going on with TBS or TNT or whatever, but I couldn't hear what Jon Moxley was saying. Now you could hear what else was going on in the pre-tape. You could hear Tony Schiavone and JR and, you know, the video package. But when it came down to Jon Moxley talking, you couldn't really hear what he was saying. But the gist of what he was saying is somebody's going to get got by the end of the show. And you cut to the AEW roster, you know, outside of the arena waiting for the BCC. You have Private Party, Orange Cassidy, Jeff Jarrett. Satnam Singh was in the building. I'm like, yo, let's get it, Satnam Singh. So they're out there waiting the entire show. They're waiting all night, man. You even had Chuck Taylor talking to Orange Cassidy saying that he needs to step up and be being man and stop being a biatch. So my thinking was that Daddy Magic was the one that was going to get murdered, because the whole time I'm thinking, well, why isn't Jeff Jarrett on commentary? Why isn't Nigel McGuinness on commentary? And midway through the main event, I was like, oh, it's because it's going to be Daddy Magic. But I was wrong. The person that ended up getting got was Chuck Taylor. You have the BCC beat up Chuck Taylor. Claudio stomps a chair around the neck of the man. And Orange Cassidy is looking like he's about to cry. So I'm assuming we're getting serious Orange Cassidy. I'm assuming this is happening at Full Gear. That would make the most sense. But then again, it's AEW. You never know. So like I've been saying throughout this video, man, AEW does a lot of good things, man. The wrestling, the storytelling. Could it be a lot better? Yes. But when AEW is on point with their storytelling, man, they don't miss. This whole thing with the BCC is on point. I like it. A lot of people are kind of down on it. Some people are more on it or on board for it than others. But, you know, me personally, I like the story. But it's the other things that they do, like a lot of the goofy stuff, like Chris Jericho winning championships, Chris Jericho getting pay-per-view time, you know. A lot of the dumb shit that AEW does, it gets really frustrating. And it's so frustrating because I really enjoy AEW. I enjoy it as a product. I enjoy it as a company. I enjoy what they do, but I don't know, man. It's frustrating, but hopefully it can get better, but I'm not too sure. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, what did you think of this week's episode of AEW? Do you share my frustration? Do you not care? Do you not care? Let me know in the comment section below. Of course, as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You guys take care. Bees, I'm out. Peace.